Good evening and welcome to TABA. It's our very first show, and I would like to welcome Lee Duke and Adam Kent all the way from Australia, who are here to talk about an absolutely amazing event that takes place each year in Australia. As you can see with the background there, it's called Walking Off the Wall Within. It's an absolutely inspirational event that they work hard on every single year. Gents, welcome to the show, and thanks very much for taking the time to come on, and we'll try and get this event a lot bigger and a lot more publicity for it. So thank you very much for that.
No, thanks for having us, mate.
Thanks, Davey.
Yeah, not a problem. So I think where we'll start is we'll get a bit of background from yourselves, what you have done in the past, your service and stuff like that. So if we start with yourself, Lee, just give us a bit of your background, please, mate.
Yeah, okay. Well, I joined the Australian Defence Force in 2005, January 2005. So I'd always been interested in like the Defence Force and Army and all that sort of stuff growing up. And one day my mate just come to me and he goes, "I've signed up for the Army." And I was like, "Geez, that's a really good idea." I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Tanks." I said, "All right, I like tanks." So we worked out well. Me and my best mate signed up together. We went through recruits together, which was great. We're even in the same section through there. So that was at 2005, and we both went on to become tank crewmen. So we went down to Puckapunyal and then both posted to 1st Armoured Regiment in Darwin, where I met yourself, Davey, in 2007, I think it was. Yeah, in that time, I'll briefly brush over it. I'm guessing we'll go a bit deeper as we go a bit further. But I went to the Solomon Islands in 2006 in an infantry role. And then I went to Afghanistan in 2008, driving Bushmasters for the Commandos. And then I discharged at the end of 2009, sort of started 2010. From there, I've just been working in civilian life. Funny enough, the same job that I got when I got out. So I've been there for over 10 years now. So that's just a quick wrap up of my my military time.
Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, I joined the Australian Army in 2001 as a terminal operator in transport corps, so like a wharfie, cranes and forklifts and that sort of thing. And I at the end of 2001 deployed to East Timor for 6 months, and then in 2003 deployed to Iraq, and then in 2005 deployed to Indonesia for the tsunami relief. And I discharged from the regular army in 2006 and did a bit of reserve stuff. I did a couple of fire assists down here in Victoria. And I'm involved in the RSL, and I worked for the RSL as an advocate for about 4 years. And I've done a lot of volunteer work with RSL Active, just running all activities. And it's through this volunteer group that we started running the Walk Off the Wall Within in Warrnambool. So I'm down in Victoria, about 3 hours west from Melbourne on the coast, on the southern coast. So it's a bit colder where Luke is, up in Brisbane in Queensland. But that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, so I'll just give you a bit of background for myself as well. So I joined the Army in 1999. I went to the 1st Royal Tank Regiment, as it was then. And during that time, I had numerous deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, Northern Ireland as well, in my sort of younger years. As Lee said, I came to Australia in 2007, I think it was. I spent 4 months there. Should have moved there, but I didn't. I'd done a full term in the Army. I'd done 22 years as and I got to the rank of WO2. I left 2 years ago, and I currently work with the Army Reserve in a logistic role now. So it's a lot further for being a tankie. Now I'm a bit of a logistician. And I've been doing that for 2 years, and I'll continue to do that until something else comes along or they throw me out, whatever one it may be. So that's me in a nutshell. And again, we'll probably talk a little bit more about our careers as we go through the sort of podcast. So thanks for that, guys. So Lee, do you mind telling us a bit about Nathan Shanahan, please? You knew him personally.
Yeah.
So if you could just give a bit of background about Nathan, who's obviously the inspiration behind this whole movement. So if you could tell us a bit about him, mate, that'd be great, please.
Yeah, so going back to when I first joined the Army, went down to Kapuka to do my recruit training. So Nathan and I were in the same company, but in different platoons. So we didn't really cross paths, but Nathan's probably, I think, is about 10 years older than me. So I was about, 19, turning 20, and Nath was in his 30s. So he was a grown man by our standards, an old man. And I remember, seeing him on the parade ground and marching around. I was the, shaving at morning routine, just because that was part of morning routine, where Nath was shaving because he was a fully grown man. So he's to explain to me, he's a strong guy, looks like Donkey Kong. He's physically a well-built man, and that's what made him stand out to me at Kapuka, just seeing him as we crossed paths. And obviously I didn't realize he was becoming a tank crewman as well, and we ended up together at Puckapunyal for our initial employment training. So that was a few months down there, and we really got to be, close friends. He took us back to his family in Ballarat while we were there, and I got to meet his old man and have beers, and we went down to Torquay and partied and all that sort of stuff. And, we all made really good relationships there, coming out of our civilian life into, full-time, Defence Force, being a soldier. And we really grew together. And I guess you guys would probably understand too, and in those hard times, you grow really great relationships with other people as well. And that's sort of what was the foundation of the relationship that we had with Nathan and the other guys that we met down there. And so then, again, we both posted up to Darwin. Nathan went to A Squadron and I went to C Squadron, so we didn't get to see each other as much as we would during the workday, but we always had time for each other on the weekends, and we're always out together. And he was just a great bloke to be around with. He was basically a big brother. He didn't matter who you were or where you were from or your background. He had time for you. He was up for a laugh. He always had a good story, and he loved a beer. So he was always one of the boys, and he was, the center of attention sometimes not. And, he could go with the best of us young boys. He could go on, the big benders and keep up and, put us young guys to shame. But he was just a great bloke to be around. And as we progressed through our military careers, we sort of went in different ways. We both stayed in the regiment, but we did different paths within the regiment. I still remember we were on the very first Abrams Gunners course together, session 001. So I guess we hold that, and that was another fun time with Nate. He didn't really enjoy a lot of the academic stuff. He was the sporty guy, he was the guy on the AFL field knocking blokes around and that sort of stuff, and physically fit. But yeah, I remember one day we were doing AFE ID in thermal, and we had this computer program, and it'd beep every time you got it wrong, and I could just hear Nate up the back just buzzing away, swearing. But he worked hard at that academic stuff as well, even though that's where he struggled, and that just showed the mentality of the guy, that he never gave up, even if it was hard. So he worked through that, went down the Gunners course, and we finished that together. And through the ends of our careers, I finished at like I said, at the end of 2009, 2010, I left the Defence Force and moved back to Toowoomba, which was my hometown, just near Brisbane. And we kept in touch for a long time, Nathan and I, and we talked about joining the Fireys, because that was one of my passions to do, was to join the Fireys when I discharged. And Nate actually went on to become a Fierey as well when he finally did discharge from the Defence Force. He stayed up in the Northern Territory and moved to Alice Springs and become a Fierey there. And I don't know if you know much about Alice Springs, but it's probably one of the hardest places in probably Australia to live. In the middle of nowhere. So he did that for several years, and then did move down to Mildura and Ballarat to be a Fierey down there in Victoria as well. We did lose touch there, as you do with getting families and that sort of stuff. And I kind of think that's probably one of my biggest regrets, is that we didn't keep that close bond that we did. But I've found that with a lot of my military mates, is that we don't see each other for a long time, but as soon as you catch up, it's like a day hasn't passed. So I missed that we didn't get that opportunity again. But I'm forever thankful of our friendship and the great bloke that he was, and his family that I've got to meet through there, and his wife Kosh and their kids as well. So that's Nathan in a nutshell. Really, he was a hard man. He was a strong man. He worked hard. He fought hard, and he was just like a big brother to me. So that was our relationship. And I miss our times from up in Darwin as well, and our times down in Pucker as well. So there's some very good memories there. Probably a lot that I can't talk about on a podcast.
That's fine, mate. I think we fully understand that. Like you were saying earlier, and something that you touched on, and I see this loads. You can go 5-10 years without seeing it. They served in the military way, but the minute you see them after that, 5 or 10 years, it's like not a day's passed. So yeah, I'm sure we all sort of feel that as well. So thanks for that, Lee. That was absolutely outstanding, mate, and it sounds like a top bloke. Adam, with the event itself, how did you in fact, do you want to just explain what the event is, and how it came to pass, in its growth sort of thing?
Yeah, well, you can chime in anytime here, Lee. It's so as Lee said about Nathan, he was a fiery and suffered from post-traumatic stress, and was a bit of an advocate for awareness and promotion. And he walked from Mildura to Adelaide to raise money and awareness for post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And I think he did about 400K, I think, Lee, in about 10 days.
With a 25 kilo pack. Yeah.
And getting to, so I never met Nathan, but I've got to know Lee and Kosh and John and Leslie really well. And yeah, John tells me he called it he's walking off his wall within, going on. And then that was 2015. And he arrived in Adelaide on Anzac Day, 2015. And then unfortunately, 2016 in December, took his own life. And Lee and the family have kept his legacy going and his memory in honour of Nathan to run this walk every year. And it started in Ballarat, in Mildura, and then it's grown to Brisbane, and we do it in Warrnambool, Darwin, Tennant Creek, I think, this year. And I think it's such a great event. It's so inclusive for everyone. I can just see it growing and growing. And you're talking about that connection when you drift off and stuff. Like I said, I toured Iraq in 2003, and I ran into another guy in Indonesia in 2005, but we sort of lost contact. And then we were both in Melbourne working at the time, and we caught up for lunch. And a long story short, we hadn't seen each other for 14 years. And we were talking about, because I'm out Warrnambool, he's in Melbourne, we wanted to catch up properly, not just a half an hour lunch. So I suggested the Ballarat walking off the wall within, and we met up and did that. And we hadn't really caught up properly for like 14 years, and we did 20K together. And like you said, it was like yesterday, we really reconnected and that sort of thing. And now we've become really good mates. We catch up all the time. And Lee's met Chris because we came up to the Brisbane one last year. But I run a lot of activities around here for veterans and families, just to create that connection. Because what I've found is, and my own lived experience is, when you get out of the army or the military, you lose that camaraderie, and especially when you go live in rural areas. People don't quite understand the journey you've been on, and you don't quite understand it yourself, and you're trying to fit back into the same life that you left, and there's different challenges to that. But when you create these activities and peer support, you're with like-minded people that have experienced a similar experience, and you sort of get that camaraderie back. And the walk off the wall within is another way to do that as a annual day thing. And I was approached by a guy who's had his own journey. down here in Warrnambool, and he approached me and said, this is a great thing. It really touched his heart, and said, let's run it in Warrnambool. So we did. 2019 was the first time we ran it in Warrnambool, and it's just growing and growing, and the whole community really embraces it. And there's something there for everyone.
Excellent. So with the sort of 20Ks, is there a significance behind that, Lee? Is it just a sort of rounded number that we're going to go and walk 20K?
Yeah, I think that's roughly probably what it was. Is just it's a number that's inclusive for everyone to be able to do without becoming some sort of endurance event. 20 Ks is, for some people probably, 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe something like that. So gives you an opportunity to, not thrash yourself out there and turn this into some sort of endurance event, like some sort of true grit or touring event or one of those. There's nothing wrong with any of those, but this is the opportunity to walk beside someone and to be able to have a chat for that period of time. And, people tend to like group up in bunches as the walk progresses, and you can meet new people and have different conversations. You don't just have to sit with your group and walk with them, even though there's nothing wrong with that either. It's a great time to draw yourself out of, your technology and what's happening around, and just concentrate on the fresh air and outside, and, have a good conversation to the person next to you. So it's about being inclusive to everyone. So there's the 5 and the 10 kilometre. You could walk to the pub and back if you wanted. It doesn't really matter. You come down and do what suits you and just become part of the day.
Yeah, and it's so obviously Nathan was a soldier and a fireman. So is it big subscribed with other emergency services like police and doctors and nurses and people like that?
Yeah, so up in here in Brisbane where I run the event, I've only got a defence background, so I find it really easy to connect into the defence areas. So I do get a lot of veterans and that sort of stuff to come here. I'm really trying to push for the emergency services to get on board, and just out of sheer luck, I was posting on some Facebook pages in the local area for Queensland, fire services about Nathan's story and the walk, and to come on down. And a guy actually sent me a private message, and he explained that he actually went to school with Nathan in Ballarat, and he knows Nathan the same way everyone else knows Nathan, that he was a great bloke, and he jumped on board straight away. And he said, anything you need from the Fireys, you come see me. So they've been really great over the last few years now that I can get the Fireys on board. They come down with their trucks and that sort of stuff, but I'm trying to get the message into the guys on the ground to come out and do this as well. And it was good to see the insight to some. I was copied into some emails that went out to like all of the Brisbane area, and it was along the lines of we've all seen stuff in our day-to-day job, and we've all had our struggles, and this is a great event to get behind. So it's really touching to hear that stuff, and that people can connect with Nathan's story as well, being a fiery. So. And I do know down south where Nath was a fiery, Adam's probably got more of an insight to them, because I haven't actually been able to make it down to one of the ones down south as of yet. But they get the helicopter down there, they get fire trucks, they get the fireys all come out in their gear and their oxygen tanks, and they do the 20 Ks in their oxygen tanks. And a lot of it is run by the guys that Nathan used to work with down there as well. And that just shows the impact that he had on the fire service down there as well, that they're all on board for that as well. I don't know, Adam, if you want to add anything else about the walks down south with the fireys and emergency services.
Yeah, Fire Rescue Victoria are totally on board, and they really support each event. I know they have here in Warrnambool, and I've done the Ballarat one before, and they've been really supportive. And like Lee said, you can walk as long or as little as you like. It's all about participating in the day, not so much the walk. It's the walk challenge is there, 20K, carrying 20 kilo. You can walk as far or as little as you want, carry as much or no weight. It's all about the connection, and not just for veterans and our emergency services, but the whole community. I like to think of it as a two-way street, where a lot of veterans and emergency services experience different things, that the community don't always understand. So it gives an opportunity for the community to understand, and for the veteran and first responders, how they fit into the community as well. And when it's a shared load, it's often an easier load, and it's in the best interests of everybody. So we don't go through these things alone, because we all have our time where we need someone else to sort of just pick up a bit of slack for us, and then we're all the first ones there to do it for each other. It's a big team game, this thing they call life, and the more we all connect in different ways, I think the stronger communities and stronger families.
Yeah, well said, mate. I think we touched on mental health the other day, myself and Lee, before you come on the call, Adam, and it's that there's still massive stigma around it in places, and I suppose this is a great event that helps sort of end that. And Lee had touched on that in Australia it's still sort of hard for men to talk about mental health. I'd love to think, and I mean, you just tell me that things like this are helping men especially open up a bit more about what they've been through, what they've seen, what they've done, how they're going about sort of fixing it. Not
Yes.
fixing it. I'd say the wrong word to use is fixing it, but hopefully getting their way of getting through it.
Yeah, so definitely from my own personal experience over the last 10 years, definitely is, you know, it was sort of frowned upon, or you know, sort of a malingerer, or, you know, if it's not a wound that you can see, it's not a wound that you can treat, or people just don't understand it. And I've learned that people take experiences different from someone else. So two people could go through the exact same experience, but it will affect each of them differently. And I think sometimes that's hard to see. And it was a massive wake up call for like our group of friends and friends of Nathan, and you know, veterans that knew Nathan, that when he passed, that such a strong man, physically, and you know, he was just such a grounded, down to earth guy, that he could be experiencing such pain. And it did. I wish it didn't take that, but it has. It's really awoken a lot of the guys, and we're more open about talking about our feelings and when we're struggling. But yeah, it is growing now, and I can see it through friends and that sort of stuff, and this walk as well. Like Adam touched on about people at the other walk that you've seen, and I know last year I had, you know, guys, you know, running into the arms of their friends and family in tears, and you know, like they don't understand it. It's, you know, it's not me, it's the disease, and you know, like you know, I haven't changed, and you know, it's heartwarming to see that sort of stuff. And even just recently, I was out camping with a bunch of guys. Some of them I'd only just met for the first time, and sitting around the fire from all walks of life, tradies, veterans, you know, office workers, you know, all different ages, and openly spoke about mental illness and, you know, the steps that they'd taken in their life to overcome it. And I felt really good walking away from that, to see that it can be such openly discussed across so many different age groups as well, because you know, it's normally been sort of the past that, you know, your I don't know how to put it, your older family, sort of your father figures and that, were always very stoic and, you know, very hard, and didn't show much emotion. I don't know if that was just to protect the family or that sort of stuff, but you know, as we've grown, we know it's not a weakness. It's, you know, it's treatable. You can talk to people about it. You can unload that burden, and you can walk through it together. So I'm seeing the changes personally around me, and I hope that's trickling through the community as well.
Yeah. I think what you're saying earlier, obviously it did used to be seen as a weakness, but actually sort of my recent experiences over the past couple of years, I now see it as a massive strength to be able to share my experience with people, and the phone calls I get off people now saying thanks for doing that. Like the video I done last week, people have phoned me and thanked me for doing that. because it's now gave them sort of the kick up the arse, if you like, to maybe go and get a wee bit of help themselves. They've not done they put it off. And what I tell people now is, if you constantly put it off, you're going to end up in a real bad place, because it's not something you can put off. You know, you recognise it in yourself, and people recognise it in you. Sometimes people are afraid to come and tell you. I found that. But actually, when I started recognising it in myself, that's when I knew that I had to do something about it. And I'm glad by doing it, it's helped other people.
You do, yeah. The hardest thing is to talk about it, and I really respect the people that come and say that, put their hand up and I've got a problem, and you know, that feeds into other people. You know, what you're doing is a great thing, and you know, you are helping other people get the courage to talk about it. And I heard a really good analogy once. You know, mental illness is sort of like a tree root. You know, like if you let it keep going, it's going to take root and it's going to be harder to get out. So, you know, if you can talk about it and keep it under control and discuss it, you know, it doesn't let it take root and to take over.
It's prevention, early intervention is the key. And I think what I've seen with running, like we run a all sort of levels, all fitness levels PT class every Saturday morning, where there's lots of kids there and it's all age groups, all fitness levels. And then we go and have a coffee and breakfast. And because you've just worked up a bit of a sweat, and I see it similar to the walk, Lee, where everyone's jovial and, you know, your endorphins are running and all that sort of stuff. So, and it's the best time to talk about some of this stuff. And I agree, Davey, it is a strength, and sometimes we have to experience it and feel that negative stuff. I know in my journey, about 6 years ago now, I was at my lowest ebb, and when I talk about it now and I'm comfortable to talk about it, I felt really weak and I felt embarrassed, but I was going down a spiral. So I put my hand up early and I checked myself into a psych ward for a reset. And now when I reflect on that, I'm embarrassed that I was embarrassed, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I think the more we do what we're doing now, the more we all talk about it, like we're talking about a dodgy knee or a dodgy ankle, the less and less stigma, because there's so many people. I think it was pre-COVID. Me and a mate did a pitch for an ideas seminar, if you like, and we pitched about come and meet a veteran day down at the park. And in part of that pitch, we were talking about it's a way of managing our mental health and that sort of thing. And I'll never forget it. There was a really young, he would have been probably mid to late 20s, dressed really well, strong, really good looking bloke. Came up, approached us towards the end, and he said, I'm in awe of you blokes. And we're like, why? You know, and he goes, the way you can comfortably talk about your mental health, I wish I could do that with my mates. And we just thought, why can't you? Like, why? We're all the same. We all experience it. So I'd like to think he would have went and talked to his footy mates and that sort of thing. And then it can flow on, and it does, from events like this. It flows on into community, to know that so many people have experienced what someone's experienced now, and to talk about it at an early stage can accelerate and mitigate. So it can be a bit of, you know, down for a day or being a bit depressed for a couple of days, as opposed to really spiraling into a really deep depression for a week, if you like. I think moods, you know, we're going to go in ebbs and flows. We can't be full positive 100% of the time. And life is not linear. But if we can minimize the lows, and I think we can go a long way to do that by continually talking about it and reaching out when you are a bit low. And because, you know, sometimes we are a bit flat and whatever. And I know I live by myself, so I'll reach out to a friend, and it could be just a phone call, and you have a few laughs, you know, you get the black humor firing up and that sort of thing. And then half an hour later, you just feel a bit better. And you can, you know, get a good night's sleep and tackle the next day a bit better than if you didn't make that phone call and then you're stewing on it. You had a really ordinary sleep. And as we all know, things can spiral pretty quick.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying there, where the knee analogy and the ankle, you notice people have got an injury by if they're limping, if they've got a cast, if they've got something, you can notice that. But I mean, with mental health, somebody could be smiling and having a right good giggle with you, and you don't know what's going on inside their head. So it's an invisible injury, really, isn't it? I think that's what I'm trying to say, and it's one that takes a while to recognise sometimes. But yeah, and times it will happen to people. It's like the time of year for any incident that can be a trigger, and it's, I suppose, knowing when they're coming up, you can sort of help yourself by putting building blocks in place to sort of maybe not think about it and think about other stuff. But yeah, that's what I do currently. I'll put something in place to stop me dwelling on sort of what's happened previously. Like I'm going to walk 54 miles next month. That's part of my sort of building blocks to keep my mind focused on something. But yeah. So with the back to the event slightly, we'll touch more on the mental health thing in a minute. But the event, how's it grown over the years? What was the sort of early numbers compared to what we're at now? Because it's like 5 events going on this year. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, so COVID took a bit of a hit on some of the events, and there was a bit of a scale back over the last few years. I guess it was those ones that kind of took the hit and hard to get going again. But Darwin and Ballarat and Mildura have been around for some time. They were sort of the first ones, and I know Ballarat and Mildura get massive turnouts because it's Nate's hometown, and he went to school there, and he lived there for some time, and coaches down there as well. There's a lot of community support behind those ones, and they get in the plus thousands. So I don't know the exact numbers that they do get at the end there, but it's quite a bit, and it's good to see the photos and the videos of the day as they're doing it and seeing the turnout there. I know in Brisbane, I've really had a bad run over the last few years. So like my first year was COVID, so I had to cancel my event. Second year, I got double booked for the Oval with the council, and then it rained the whole week leading into the event. Council closed down the field, so I couldn't put anything on the ovals. And then a massive storm came through the morning of, so I really, really diminished my numbers. But even then, I think I got close to 200. And then last year was even worse than the year before. Like the wind was sideways. People's gazebos were blowing over. There were storms around. I had to cut the course in half to 10 Ks because I didn't want people to be, they're at the 20-kilometre turnaround point. They're 10 Ks from the village. The weather was that bad that I didn't want anyone out that far. And people said that, it wasn't too bad walking there, but coming back that the wind in there and the water rain into their face. So again, that really affected my numbers, but people still turn out. I got probably another close to 200 there for that day as well with the, the wind and the rain and the weather conditions that people had to put up with. And it just shows that people are really passionate about mental health, that they're willing to, get out early in the morning and come get into this wet weather and stomp around. But yeah, and Darwin's another big one as well. Denny, who is the wife of one of Nate's friends up in Darwin as well. She runs the event up there, and she's actually counsellor on the local council up there too now, and she's been a massive advocate for mental health in the veterans. So like yourself, Davey, that Darwin is a massive defence community up there. It's probably one of the main bases in Australia where we've got, Navy, Air Force and Army all in the one area. There's a lot of veterans up there that tend to stay after they finish their service, plus all the ones that are currently serving. So there is a massive push for walking off the wall within up there. They missed last year, but it's good to see that they're back this year. And I'm hoping that they can get some really good numbers as well, because it's definitely something that they need up in Darwin for sure. And if Adam wants to talk about Warrnambool, I know he'd have a lot more to know about his own walk.
Yeah, Warrnambool's steadily grown, like similar to what you said, Lee. COVID sort of put it back a bit, but we've pushed on, and it's growing again. We get around at this stage around 100 to 120 registered walkers. but we make the whole day, like we get live music down there, all the emergency services like fire trucks, and there's displays and paramedics and police. And then we set up a lot of stalls for other organisations, to information stations and that sort of thing. We have some face painting, and in the past we've had jumping castles, free sausage sizzle and that. So we get about, throughout the day, about 400 or 500 coming down to the park. It's a popular park in Warrnambool. So this year I want to get around to a lot of the sporting clubs, schools, Rotary clubs and that sort of thing, to talk about it and explain what it is a bit more, to get groups coming down together to mix with other groups and that sort of thing. I think people are starting to hear about it, but go, oh yeah, I've heard about that, but I didn't really know what it is. But they might come down for a sausage, but not actually register and get involved. So I want more people to get involved. So I'm pretty confident we can grow those numbers this year. We're running in October this year, but Saturday week I'll be up in Brisbane for Jukie's function up there, and we're combining it with a 20-year reunion from Iraq. So there'll be about 5 of us, I think. That'll be. I won't be walking because I'm getting knee surgery this week, but I'll be up there, and so we're using it as a bit of a activity to reconnect. So there'll be blokes that haven't seen since I left Baghdad in November 2003. So it'll be 20 years since we've caught up. We'll do the walk together. I'll do a little bit of it, not much, and then we'll go out for dinner that night. And there'll be partners involved as well. It's always a family event. So really looking forward to that. And like I said before, that bloke, Chris, and I came up last year and we did it. And that's where I first met Lee. And I think, we probably spent half an hour together, and you're doing your thing. But it's amazing how, like, the walking off the wall within, and even when Lee reached out to the family and stuff about doing this podcast, like I said, I won't get offended if it's just a family thing. And straight away, I'm getting a message back from Coach saying, you are part of the family now, Adam, and that sort of thing. How, from an outsider, how inclusive and welcomed I've felt into this walking off the wall within group, if you like, and that's what it's all about. And that filters out on the days, all that inclusiveness and the I think the love that's going around, and you can feel it and you can experience it. And when I left there after meeting Juki for an hour, I got a big hug off the big fella, and that's the way it should be. I think not only can blokes talk about mental health, blokes can hug each other as well.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I've got
on the back of what
you always tell me, handshakes are for strangers.
That's true.
He'll know this. He'll watch this. And he'll know who I'm talking about.
On the back, sorry, David, what Adam was saying too, like, so, it's at Nate's funeral, and we've had a funeral for a couple of guys that we served with, and we always said that, Jesus, guys, we're only catching up for weddings and funerals, and, the weddings are starting to dry up, and that was sort of the sentiment at a few of them. It was, when we caught up, it's sort of like bittersweet. We're there for such a tragedy, but at the same time, it was so good to have all the guys back together again, and guys that you hadn't seen. So one of the things that's kind of sprouted out of doing the Brisbane walk, and me being a veteran with Nathan and the same group of friends, that, this has sort of become a bit of a beacon, the Brisbane walk, for a lot of Nate's friends. And so we got guys, fly in from Townsville, Sydney, Darwin. And if you know how big Australia is, for a flight from Darwin to Brisbane, you're on a flight for about 5 or 6 hours. Same with Townsville, you're a couple of hours from there. Sydney, Adam comes up from, all the way down from Melbourne. So we all do the walk, and it's a great time for us all to get together. We get a big group, we get our group photo done, and after the walk finishes, I put a barbecue on home, and it's just great to hear, the laughter of all the boys, and reminiscing on stories forgotten. And it's actually, it's what we've all talked about today, but on a scale for our group, for us as veterans as well. We have the community one, but for us, we take it as a bit of a reunion, and we catch up, and it's really good to see guys that you haven't seen in, 15 years or even longer, and just sit down and sit around a fire and have beers and have a really good day. And you walk away from the weekend really good. And there's always some sort of new funny story that happened over the weekend that filters into the next year. And there's guys that come back from next year and other people that talk about it, and more people are coming. And, it's just really great to see. And I'm glad, Adam's been able to, on the back of that, catch up with his friends as well, and I hope it continues to grow, and that the boys just keep on coming. And I'm looking forward to that's probably one of the things I look forward to most after it is the catching up. And I did explain to you too when we spoke the other night, is that there's a massive expat group of UK British forces over here that have really jumped on board with the walk, and I've met some really nice guys through their group. And they come every year. They've been there since the very first one, and they come out in droves, and they wear all their kit, and they all catch up. You can hear them laughing, and you can hear them, picking on each other, and all the laughter, and they get out there and do it. And even last year, they met up with some of Nate's mates, and they all went to the pub at the Belvedere over at Woody Point, which is just down the road from where the walk starts. And they had beers together there, and they've remained in touch. And even they got invited to some of the boys. Went to one of their reunions about Gooseneck Green, is it, from Falklands?
Goose Green.
It was Goose Green. Yeah, sorry if I got that wrong, but yeah, they got invited to a catch up with a couple of veterans from there, and they all were talking about their stories. Unfortunately, I was away at the time and I couldn't attend, but I hear a lot of good stories. And this is just how it grows. It just, people talk about it, people come down, we get invited to other things, we meet new people, and we all openly talk about it. And it's just great to see that how much it can grow. I even remember last year, Coach was ringing me saying there's a guy live streaming that I'm friends with on your walk. I didn't know he was there, and he was talking about it all, and sending it out to all his friends and family as well. So I hope it continues, and I hope it grows in the other areas like that. I'm sure the Fire is down south that Nath work with, and I'm sure they get together afterward as well, and catch up and talk about the good times, because that's certainly what we're doing up here.
Amazing. It's an amazing thing that's turning into more a sort of community as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is absolutely amazing, and it can only be a good thing. It can only help people. I just wanted to ask that a question. See, obviously, mental health in the UK military at the moment is a massive thing, and they put massive stuff in place for it, for people to go and do sort of therapy and stuff like that. How is it in the Australian military? Is there sort of anything in place where they go, they talk to a doctor there, and then they go to other places and do like therapy?
I'll probably let Adam talk about that one, because he has been through some of those sorts of things, which I haven't. But Adam, if you don't mind talking about it, or I can talk.
Yeah, no, that's all right. They had this is probably the similar, standard POPs and that post-operation psych screening and that sort of thing. But I know in my time, I'd never took it seriously. It was like a bit of a competition on how quick you could get in and out, and that sort of thing. And that was, doing the blokey thing at the time, and at times there was nothing going on. It's not till later, I think. It's not till you get out of the military, and I'm speaking from experience, and a lot of the veterans and families that I talk to. I'm not sure what the military's like these days. I've been out of the regular army for a long time, but there's lots of good things around. There's lots of different organisations now, so it is a confusing space. So there is supports out there, but navigating that space is very difficult when you haven't been in it before. Whether it's the RSL, Legacy Clubs, Soldier On, Open Arms, DVA, there's so many different organisations. But I think some of the work I've done volunteer out rurally is to engage in the community organisations, not just the veteran organisations. And I think that's a good thing as well, because sometimes you can get caught up in the veteran bubble and it sort of really defines you, and you can get I see some people get trapped in that. So it's a good way to connect into your community in different ways. But yeah, I think there is an issue with navigating the space. There's support networks out there, but it's not that easy to just go, oh, call this number. You sometimes get handed around a bit, and that can be very frustrating. And I know I've given up before, and people give up. I'm not sure if it's a similar experience for you, Juki. I'm not sure how long you've been out and been in Brisbane. I think it'd be different experiences to city versus country as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, like you were talking about, some of those organisations, most of them are headquartered out of Brisbane here, but I think there's probably more there, but it's still the same navigating it all. I know, after Nate, I really got hit for six of that, and I was, I didn't know where to go or where to turn or who to talk to, and some of the organisations that I did go to sort of offered me nothing, and I don't think they fully understood the magnitude of what was happening, but that's probably just because I've turned to the wrong way. And like you said, sometimes there's too many. You just don't know which one to talk to. But like I'm hearing through other veterans now that sorts of things like open arms and that sort of stuff now are pretty good. I think the government's really taken it on board, all the information that they're getting back from veterans and the veteran community on how we need to be better at dealing with veterans and mental health. So, within Brisbane, I think we're lucky in that sense that there is a lot of headquartered areas here, and there's probably a lot more people that we can go to. But yeah, exactly what you said. It's really hard to navigate that space on where to go to, and I hope, if anything, one of those improves. And that's what we try and do at the walk, like you mentioned, in Warrnambool too. We have a lot of the stalls here from Open Arms and a few other organisations as well. And there's a lot of veteran-run groups that come up as well. Like I know about, I don't know if you've heard about Red Six at all, Adam, but it's a really good peer-to-peer one. And I know I've been on that before. If you don't know, it's just an app, and you put in your emergency contacts, and you can just put in how you're feeling, thumbs up, thumbs down, sort of deal, and you can connect to people nearby you, or you can put people in there as a contact. And I know, like, if I've got a message, I know I'll go give that person a ring straight away. So that's something that I've used, and I know other people that are using. I really try and get them to get to the walk each year, but I know they're so busy with all their own stuff, being that they run it them entirely themselves, which is a lot of the veteran organisations as well that run singly. Like myself, I look after the Brisbane Walk completely, and it can get a bit snowed under sometimes with it all, and everyone that's trying to contact you. So yeah, but there is definitely organisations out there.
Yeah, I think but this is probably a great way to actually find out the correct ones to go to as well, because as you were saying, it can be a bit of a confusion space and sometimes a bit crowded, so you might not necessarily know who you have to see and who you speak to, sort of thing. So going on walks like this, you never know, you might end up just speaking to someone who have the exact same feelings as yourself, and bang, straight away, where did you go? So that sort of scenario. So again, it's another thing that this is an amazing event for people just to connect that way and try and get a better understanding of who you have to see. For me, it was the stuff in the military. It's great. It's come on lots and lots over the past few years, but I felt the initial person that I spoke to didn't really understand what I was going through, which sounds really bad to say of a professional, but it was almost like, yeah, you've got PTSD. Yeah, I know that. That's why I'm here. But then the people they sent me to, I get signposted out to do some high intensity therapy, which was absolutely amazing. The girl who told me for that was absolutely amazing. She knew exactly what it was she had to do to make me talk to her, So again, I just think at the time the initial person I spoke to didn't really fully understand what he was trying to tell me to do and achieve, you know what I mean? Which is a bit of a shame, really, but it is what it is. So going forward, what do you think the the sort of event can bring in the next sort of year or two? Do you think it can grow even more than it already has? That's got to be the aim for it, because it's absolutely amazing at the moment.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I
for
think
Brisbane, you know.
Sorry,
Oh, yeah, you go.
Duke.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I know for here in Brisbane, you just tell people Nate's story and how the walk came about, and they're instantly on board. And once they learn about Nathan and the connection of the family and friends, and you know, it sells itself. The story is there, and people want to come on board. People want to be a part of it because it's a free event. You know, it's for everybody. It's inclusive. Come down and show your support for veterans. Come down and talk to them. Come down and see the other organisations that are there. You know, and it's everyone I talk to, you know, absolutely loves the event. Look at yourself, Dave. You know, you're all the way over there in the UK, and you're hearing the message from there. And so I can only see the event growing. For me, it's a bit of a slow burn because I'm looking after this event in my spare time between full-time work and 3 kids. So I wish I had more of the time to put in it to grow it exponentially quickly, because I know it can. But what I'm doing is I'm just growing it bit by bit each year, and I'm already seeing it growing each year, and then it's word of mouth from there. Like I did this last year, and it's great. I'm seeing like the comments on Facebook. This is the walk I was talking about. This is the one. I've had people come up to me after the walk and go, "This is brilliant. I'm going to bring all my friends down here next year." And I know it's going to grow, and I'm really glad that it is. And I just have to put the event on every year, and I know more and more people are going to rock up. And like I can't thank my sponsors enough as well. You know, without them, I can't put this event on and keep it free for people, because it needs to be free for those people that, you know, need it to be free. So you don't want to. If people do want to donate, it does. It helps other organisations that work throughout the year with veterans and first responders. So my 2 here are SMEAC, which is a veteran group, and then the other one's Trek to Health, which is a group that works with it's resilience. So they work with veterans and first responders. So I try and help money to raise for them if anyone does donate, and then they can continue the fight for the rest of the year. And I hope people can connect with them. And yeah, I just know it's going to grow and grow each year. I just know I have to put the event on, and I know people are going to come.
Yeah, I'd only echo those words. I see the same thing happening here in Warrnambool. It's the community have embraced it, and I'd like to see, hopefully, they bob up in other areas as well. It's just such a good event that everyone can relate to. You know, everyone has mental health, like you have 2 arms and 2 legs, and the more these opportunities. And I think in the veteran space, so I've done a lot of work in the veteran space. It's a great opportunity for a one-stop shop for the day, where you can just connect to your community and can get the ball rolling, and then you can find your niche, whether it's a park run, or whether it's a sporting club or a Rotary club or whatever. It's really important that you find where you fit in. Everyone fits in, everyone's worthy somewhere, everyone's got something to give to their community. It's just working out where and how that is, I think.
Well, like I say, lads, it's an absolutely amazing event. And I'll make a commitment right now that I will do all 5 events this year, starting with the one next week. And then whatever month they're on, I'll do the walk over here. I will try and rope some people in to do that with me. So if you're listening, just be prepared for a phone call soon. But I will try and get it on this side of the world as well, because I think it's an absolutely amazing event. What you've told me about Nathan, the event itself, his family, it's all inspirational stuff. It really is. But I think, I'll do all 5 of them this year, and then hopefully, with obviously permission the family and the organisers over there, I'll try and set one up for next year. It will always be done in Nathan's name. Nothing will change from that. It'll just be on the other side of the world. And then we'll keep it growing. Guys, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on to TABA. It's been really good, really, really interesting chat. I hope you have enjoyed it as well. It's always good to share a problem shared, a problem halved and stuff like Thanks to Nathan's family for allowing me to do this podcast. And again, I can't thank you enough, guys. It's absolutely amazing. As always,
thanks.
If anyone has a story to tell and they want to tell it, please get in touch and I will make it happen for you. Thank you very much, lads.
Thanks, Davey. Thanks for having us.